Hey guys, today I want to do a video that I've been wanting to do for a while, but I kind of was hampered a little bit from my surgery on my thumb. It's doing a bit better now. I can kind of function a little bit with it, so now's the time I can get out here and do it. We got a nice day today. It's about 10 above. We had a pretty good snowstorm the other day, but today's not too bad. I apologize if the wind kicks up and makes it a little hard to hear. We've having just a little bit of gusty wind. But anyway, this video is about two different types of ferro rods. Now I know that this has been done a few times, especially lately, but I had a friend contact me on Facebook wanting to know why he couldn't get his ferro rod to act like someone else's ferro rod on a different video that he was watching. And I kind of, I had him mail me that ferro rod just to make sure that, maybe he had a defective ferro rod or something. I've used it just a tiny bit to know that I can get it to work, and I have a different style, and I'll try to compare the two and show you the different techniques that I use to get each one to spark for me. There's other videos out there that kind of describe the differences between the two. I could have Googled it and give you more information. I'm not going to lie to you, I don't really 100% understand the differences, except that one is harder and one is softer, and it just takes two different styles of striking to get them to work. They'll both work for you, but you just have to understand what type of ferro rod you have and then make your method match your ferro rod. So I'm going to get some Tinder and we'll get a close-up of these ferro rods and we'll get started. Okay guys, here's what I'm going to be using for this today, just kind of a little basic demonstration. I have a little bit of aspen bark here, got some cedar bark, and then I've just got a little piece of birch bark kind of for a mat. But this is the ferro rod that the gentleman sent me that he was having trouble getting to work. Now, I'm horrible at pronouncing stuff, but it's Kugelins or something. Anyway, this is the ferro rod that he was having troubles with, and this is actually a softer ferro rod. Sometimes if you don't strike this one correctly, it can give you a little bit of problems. This is just a cheap one that I purchased off eBay, and I put that fat wood handle on it. I don't really like this one too much. I think I'm going to redo the handle. I'm not a woodworker. I like antler a lot better because it's already done for you. It's already a nice shape. But anyway, this one's basically brand new. I've been trying to scrape some of the shavings off of it to, you always got to shave the black stuff off it. So anyway, these are the two ferro rods we're going to be using. One's a hard one, one's a soft one. I'm going to just use this, I'm going to process this birch bark, or this cedar bark down a little bit more. And I love cedar bark for ember fires. In other words, if I had a bow drill and I had a coal going, or if I had flint and steel, something like that, it extends the ember. I guess that's why they call it a coal extender. But anyway, it extends the ember very nicely and embers up and just, goes into flame very nice. With a ferro rod, sometimes you can have a little bit of difficulty with it. Just depends on how dry it is. If you just took it right off the tree, I've found it's just a tiny bit difficult sometimes. But this aspen bark, this stuff, once you fluff this stuff up, it takes a ferro rod spark real nice. So sometimes I like to kind of combine my tinders. Really, if I had cattail, I'd be working a bunch of cattail in there too, and dried grass. I like to use a lot of different things because you never know what's gonna. Some things just spark up better than others. So just kind of experiment and find what works best for you. I'm going to start processing this tinder down, and I'll show you the methods that I use for striking these two different types of ferro rods. Okay guys, well, when you see my tinder bundle, you're going to notice it was on fire a couple times. I just got this video done, went inside, and realized the entire time I was striking the ferro rods, my arm was in the way. So I think you guys could have got the idea, but might as well be able to have you guys see what I'm doing. So if I repeat myself, I'm sorry. I shot the first part. First part I think's okay. This part, my stupid arm was in the way. So once again, here we have our two ferro rods. One's a softer one, one's a harder one. The method that the gentleman was asking about, why he could not duplicate, was this other guy on a different YouTube video was using his ferro rod with basically, he planted his ferro rod and then did sort of a sharp stroke to get it to light like that. And he wondered, this was a hard one, he wondered why he could not duplicate that with his ferro rod. Now with these softer ferro rods, you can do this method, you just have to do it a little bit different. You have to make it a sharper stroke. You need to, quicker, you might say. It needs to be a quicker stroke, and you need to bear down on it pretty hard. Okay? You can still do it, but it's a little bit more difficult. Okay? And it's not going to sound the same as somebody using a harder ferro rod. You hear that scrape. It's a noticeable scrape rather than it's just a sharper scrape sound. Once you get to working with these ferro rods, you'll be able to kind of tell the sound difference. Anyway, I seem to see there's a lot of people that are struggling with these ferro rods, and they're, you know, it's just they're new. That's all. It's no big deal. But a couple of things that you need to make sure you have is whatever striker you happen to use. I'm using my knife. You need to have a but you need to have a good, sharp striking surface that you're using. I have a little card survival tool type thing, and it's got an edge on there. That's my favorite striker, because I mean you can really bear down and remove some material with that. But if you're going to use your knife, it needs to be a nice 90-degree sharp spine. Now if I was really careless with this, I think I could even cut myself with this. It's that sharp. I mean, it's just a good 90-degree spine. If it's dulled or rounded, you're not going to be able to get the strike that you need. Now with this method, you're planting your ferro rod and you're moving your knife, and you don't want to do it so that, you know, you over exaggerate it and make all your tinder go everywhere. It's kind of a short, controlled stroke. Now those aren't necessarily wasted strokes. I mean, it's a little harder, like I said, with this type of ferro rod, but all that material, when I get a good stroke, it's all going to catch. See that? So it is a little harder, but you can still use this method. So basically, when I'm sitting here struggling and all I'm doing is removing material, what that tells me is I am not making my stroke quick enough. I'm not doing it quite quick enough. So if I'm just sitting here and I'm just removing, wait for it to stop, and if I'm just removing material, that means I'm not going quite fast enough. And there's a little knack to it. I mean, you got to kind of practice with them. Whereas this harder one, I mean, it's quite a bit easier to strike using this method. The other method that I like to use is to plant my knife hand or my striker hand. This is when I'm using a knife, and pull back on my ferro rod, directing the sparks at the tinder bundle. One thing I think a lot of people don't understand is the amount of force that's required to do this. I mean, it's not like, you know, it's not like you got to work out to do this or anything, but you do need to have a little bit of force behind it. It's kind of like realizing when you're doing the bow drill method how much force is actually required on your bearing block. It's kind of misleading, but you do need to use a bit of force on that. Okay? Both methods will work, both ferro rod types will work. You just need to realize what type of ferro rod you have and make your method match. Now this should go up pretty good, because like I said, I had this thing on fire about 3 different times. Now if I was going to use the plant method, we'll call it, where I would plant my ferro rod in my material and then use my knife. I would grab a little stick and cut a little circle out of it, maybe put that right in the middle of my tinder so that I can raise this up a little bit and then use it to strike with. I'm just going to use the logs underneath it. I don't remember if I mentioned this about the importance of a backdrop or a mat. You want to have some sort of a mat, bark, or this birch bark or some other type of bark, because once in a while your sparks will fall through all this, especially if you've got it really fluffed up. It'll fall through your tinder and land on that mat, and once in a while the spark will come in contact with your tinder. It'll land on the mat, and then the tinder's right there, and then it'll catch that way. Whereas if you didn't have that mat, the spark could just fall to the ground and not be utilized. So you want to kind of have a nice flat mat. I like to have that anyway. So here we're going to use the plant method. I'm just going to plant this down. So see, it's on fire. I'm going to put it out. So basically, it was just plant it down and scrape it, okay, and put it out. You can also use the knife plant method with these harder ones too. You just got to kind of practice with it, and like I said, I think what a lot of people are missing is the fact of how sharp your striker needs to be and how much pressure is required to remove the material necessary. So we'll put that out. And one thing too, when you use the pullback method, you do want your tinder to be quite a bit more fluffy than if you're doing the plant method. So we'll put that out. Alright, so here's the one that the gentleman was having problems with. And I don't remember if I mentioned this before. Kugelins or something, I can't pronounce it, whatever. It's a pretty common brand. So we'll try to do the plant method. Okay, so it's on fire. We'll put it out. Do that again. Just plant it down and a good hard stroke. See, all that material that I had scraped off with those failed strikes really lit that bundle on fire. Now we'll fluff it up. We'll use the plant method, or we'll use the knife method, pullback. And there you go. So I hope that helps you out, man. It's just basically, I think your technique was just maybe, you just need to work with it a little bit more. You just need to realize that if you're not getting sparks, there's a reason for it. And from my experience, it's basically a couple of different things. Basically, if your striking surface isn't sharp enough, you're not removing the material. If you are removing the material and it's not sparking for you, that means you're not doing it hard and quick enough. So I can see I'm removing material, so that means I'm not doing it hard and fast enough. Okay. So there's that. And yes, this one was a little easier. These harder ones are a little easier to do that method with. I hope that helps you, man. And I hope this time it worked. Or I hope this time you could see it on the video. So take care, and let's keep practicing, man.